In my hand, I have the brand new 13 and 15 inch MacBook Airs with the M3 chip. They were just announced, just released, and they're pretty exciting. Now, it is just a spec bump. It is an upgrade in the CPU so that they're now on the M3 platform, which is pretty cool, but there are some other little tricks that it can do now that it wasn't able to do before. But as you can see, this is the midnight color. It is a beautiful color. One of the main things that they've done with this upgraded version is, if you can see it on the video right here, the fingerprints fade away pretty fast. And so they put a new coating on this laptop, and that's pretty sweet, because if you saw last year's version of it, man, it was a fingerprint magnet. I literally, for a coworker, got one 2 weeks ago probably, and I asked her, like, do you want me to return it and get you one of these, because of the fact that the fingerprints are just so prominent on last year's model, on the M2 models. But now with this new coating, I'll show you one more time. With this new coating, man, it is, look at that. It's not even showing up right now. Yeah, it fades away. Now, over time, that will still show some smudges like any laptop would, but it's actually pretty good. Now, the actual chassis of this device is the exact same as last year. So it's got a couple of USB-C ports, it's got a MagSafe port, it's got a headphone jack. And so there's not really a ton to talk about when you're talking about the external chassis of this device. It is solid as a rock. If you've never had a MacBook Air before, it's not dinky, it doesn't feel like it's gonna fall apart. It is a very well-built machine. Yes, it is thin, yes, it is light, but it is not, it doesn't feel like a toy. It doesn't feel like it's gonna fall apart. If you ever have used smaller Windows laptops, sometimes when you press on them, there's a lot of flex in the body in these MacBook Airs, the 13 and the 15 inch. There is not flex in the body of this thing, so it is gonna last. If you put it in a backpack, it's not gonna just like fall apart and get dented and get broken. It's solid quality. The keyboard on this device is amazing. It feels great, sounds great. The trackpad is definitely large enough for anything you would really need it to do. It's very accurate. I mean, Apple is absolutely known for their trackpads, so you don't need to worry about that. And as you can see, since they got rid of the touch bar up top, it comes with this full function row. It's a fantastic machine. You're gonna get a lot of good work done if you're kind of mainly you need to type a lot for your job, all that. It's gonna be a great device for you. So what are the major differences in this machine? The major difference is it goes to the M3 platform, which means that you can now run, instead of running one monitor, you can run 2 monitors on this device. Now, it's not 2 monitors plus an open laptop. You have to put it into clamshell mode for it to use those 2 monitors, which some people say is completely ridiculous, because the old Intel computers, they could run 4 displays, I think it was. Like they could do a lot more displays, but this is such a powerful chip, you'd think it would be able to do it. Apple has worked it out. There's a reason that it is limited, that it can't do it. And so in the end, the person who is buying the MacBook Air, they're probably not wanting to run 3, 4 monitors. They're probably fine with just plugging it into a single monitor. For me, I'm a dual monitor person, and so if I were gonna use this as my main daily driver, I would have to have it in clamshell mode, but that's not that big of a deal. Looking at the size comparison of these machines, you can see that the 15 inch it's obviously bigger. The 13 inch, it is a portable size. The screen is gonna be much smaller, but if you're somebody who is traveling a lot for work, maybe you want that. Maybe you're looking for a smaller package, but for most people, I think they should go with the 15 inch. Here's the thing, it is thin enough and it is light enough. Let me pull these guys up on their sides. Thin enough and light enough that it doesn't feel like you're using that large of a computer. I mean, look at how thin those devices are. And so yes, the 15 inch MacBook Pro is larger, but it doesn't feel all that much larger because it's just so thin, so light. So if I were kind of most people, I would probably suggest going with the 15 inch MacBook Air. And then if you're somebody who absolutely needs the portability, then the 13 inch machine will be for you. But I think most people are served with a bigger laptop. When you're looking at the performance of these 2 machines, yes, there is a spec bump from the M2, but it's maybe 15%. I didn't run the numbers, but I've seen other people who have. It's not a crazy percentage jump. And so if you have the M2 MacBook Air and you feel fine with it, it's not feeling slow, do not upgrade. This is probably for people that are still on Intel, maybe the M1, but even with the M1 chip, it is still feeling fairly fast. I don't know that people with M1 chips are like, oh my gosh, this is so slow, I need to upgrade right now. Next, let's talk about the price of these machines. The 15 inch is going for $12.99, whereas the 13 inch is going for $10.99. that's a great price for these laptops. Now, you may want to upgrade some of the components in this laptop. It is a system on the chip. You will not be able to upgrade it later. And so here's what I would recommend. If you are an office worker, I would only go with 8 gigs of RAM. You will be fine with that. There is swap memory, which means that the SSD, it can switch out some of the RAM with the SSD, like what the usage is for those. Some people say that it really lowers the life of the SSD. I think you'll be fine. Personally, most people, they're just running Google Chrome, they're running like, Google Docs and all that kind of stuff. You're gonna be fine with 8 gigs of RAM. But if you have the budget for it, go for 16 gigs of RAM. It is helpful in a lot of workflows. But the 256 gig hard drive, people have complained in the past with the M2 chip, the SSD was slower on the base model, but now they've righted that wrong, and it's the same speed as the higher tier laptop storage, and so you don't need to worry about that. If you're not running, Photoshop and Lightroom and Final Cut Pro, and like you're running all these creative apps, you're probably fine with 256 gigs. Now, at this price point, yes, Apple should be running these at 512 gigs at the absolute minimum, but they don't. And so if you're trying to get into the Mac ecosystem with a laptop with as little money as possible, this is probably the model you want to go with, the 13-inch base model. It's a fantastic laptop. And then if you're the kind of person that's doing long sustained workloads, now that's very few people. Most people, even people who are video editing on these machines, you're gonna have like 10 minutes of a video edit that you're gonna export, and then it's gonna be fine. It's not gonna overheat. But maybe you're doing really long edits, like you're doing long podcasts, or maybe if you're doing like big episodes for something on Netflix. If that's you, you're probably not going for a MacBook Air. You're going with something with a fan like the MacBook Pro. So if you are doing like major projects, I'd suggest going to the Pro, but everybody else, you're probably gonna be fine with going with the MacBook Air. It's got enough juice for most people. I mean, there are still, I know YouTubers that are actually still using the M1 Mac Mini for their main workhorse, and it's just working fine. And so this M3 MacBook Air would be fine for you if you were in that situation. So the moral of the story is, not a lot has changed. Honestly, if you really want to find a bargain, you might want to go down to the M2 MacBook Air. You're going to find a great laptop for a great price. Look in the refurbished store because you can find some killer prices in the refurbished store for the Apple website. So, do I recommend these laptops? Absolutely. They're going to be a great laptop for the next 5 or 6 years for you. No problem. They're going to work fine. If you're really, really on a budget, I would go down to the M2 MacBook Air. And if you are somebody with a long sustained workflow, you're probably going to want to go for the Pro. Yes, it was just a spec bump of about 15%, 15 to 20%, but maybe you're somebody who wants to go dual monitor. If that's you, this is the only MacBook Air that can do that. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this device? Let me know if you think it's a great device. Let me know if you think that Apple's kind of holding back on people by still only allowing 2 monitors. Like this video if you found it helpful, and if you want to see the MacBook Air 15-inch M2, I did a really long-term review on it. Check that video up right here. That'll help you make your decision. I'll see you in the next one.